Hello everyone, welcome to my video lessons where I show how to create different web development projects after my 100 days of code challenge. During the challenge, I built 100 different works during 100 days. And now I create a video series where I show how to build the most interesting of them. The list of projects you can find on Design German of Dev website, and if you look here, you'll see that some of them are simple front-end widgets, some of them are mobile front ends or web pages, or video player, and so on. This is the second lesson of my series, and on the first one we created this switch, this simple on-off switch. And today I'm going to continue with it and show you how to create a day-night mode switcher based on this switch. So this is a day-night mode switcher that by default displayed on the night sky with the moon inside it as a slider, and when it's on, it displayed as a sun on the bright sky. But we will not create it from scratch, we'll create it based on this switch. So what we will create today will work the same, but will look like this. So we will just restyle this switch to this switch. So let's get started. I continue exactly when we finished the previous lesson. So I encourage you to watch it to understand everything that we built on it. I will explain briefly what we've done, and I will try to be enough slow so you can follow me. But anyways, I recommend you to look the first lesson to understand all the details of implementation. So by the end of the first lesson, we created this switch that is div with a switch class that has a slider inside it and two labels. And we have styles for all those components. This is styles for the switch. This is styles for the slider. Now it doesn't matter which styles, just important to understand that they exist. And these styles for labels. Actually, there are two sets of selectors. The selectors for the default off mode and the selectors for the on mode. So if you add the on here, the switch moves to the on state and other set of classes start working here. So the switch becomes on with the background color green. The slider also becomes on and it moves to the right, and the labels becomes on. So in the off state the on label is hidden but the off label displayed, and on the on state the opposite happens. The on label displayed and the off label is hidden. So this is on, this is off, this is on, this is off. Finally, we created a JavaScript that just moves switch to the either to the on or to the off state when user clicks on it. And also, in a moment when the class changes, the slider moves to the right or to the left, and it happens because of transition enabled for the slider. So our task for today is to redesign the default and the on state of the switch to make it look like this and like this. This is the off state and this is the on state. As you see, this switch has only the background and slider. That is why here I can remove the labels and I can remove all selectors related to the labels. This can be safely removed. Now we have only styles for the switch and for the switch in the on mode, for the slider and for the slider on the on mode. That's all. Just 4 selectors. And all our task for today is to redesign them. But before doing this, I will add the body, background color, gray. Now let's implement the switch in the default mode and redesign the switch itself and the slider. First, our switch will be much bigger. 40. For 100 pixels and 150. And also border radius will be the same. Then we can make the same with the slider. Also should be bigger. And in this switch, the slider should be on the right. So the left property, let's say 255. I think it's enough. So now let's move back to the switch and change the background. In this case, the background is an image, not the color. I already prepared the image for the background. This is the night sky with some gradient from moon. Let's apply it. Background image, URL, and of bg. Oops, this way. Also, let's scale it properly to fit the element. It could be either contain or better cover. Great, but as you see, it looks not the same as here. This is because if you see the image, you'll find that it's semi-transparent. And when you place it here, the background color of the page partly visible. It makes it look not as expected. How you can fix it? You can add the background color, like for example dark gray. Actually, it's a great idea to use the background images with background color at the same time. You can achieve some very interesting effects. For example, because background color displayed below the image, you can set any background color and make, for example, green sky, blue sky, purple sky, and whatever you want. It's an interesting effect to use transparent images as a background. But let's return it back. So this is almost ready. We will return to it later. But now let's move to the slider. Slider should be gray, background color, but not this gray. I think this gray. And also it has an image of creators. I also have this image here. This is how it looks, also transparent. Let's apply it. Now let's use different background properties to align it properly. First, let's remove repeat, no repeat, and then use the background position property to align it to the center. So, great. The switch in the default mode is ready. It even works somehow because we did not remove JavaScript. Now let's do the same with the on mode. Let's find switch on. Also add the image. I also have the image, which is also the semi-transparent image of the sky with clouds. URL on VG. And interesting effect of green sky here because of the green background color. Blue, but not this blue. Let's say refh 3D. This blue looks better. Now let's design the slider in the on mode. Move it to the left. Remove background image and make it yellow. Great. So now it animates the slider from left to right and from right to left. But I also will add transition to the slider itself to animate everything. It will look better. Now it also animates the background. The background also morphs from bright sky to the dark sky. Now let's add the shadows, because without shadows it looks flat, but the shadows brings the life, the volume to the picture. To add the shadow, you need to use the box shadow property. Let's add the shadow for the switch. It's just a single property, but it's complex. It has a lot of variables inside, which you can use to create from simple to very complex shadows. And I even think that it's better to look documentation first before apply it here. So there is a great documentation on the Mozilla Development Network. Box shadow property. And the great thing here that you not only can read documentation, but you can also try it yourself. So let's discuss a box shadow a little bit. Basically, it has three properties of shadow: the horizontal offset, the vertical offset, and the color. So this way I displayed the shadow with 10 pixels offset to the right and 10 pixels offset to the bottom as green. If you want to display the shadow on the left, you can just set a negative value here. And if you want to set the shadow to the top, you should set the negative value for the second parameter. Also, you can set the colors using RGBA to make it, for example, transparent, like the same green color. But the fourth parameter here is opacity from 1 to 0. So you can make it more or less transparent. So this is the basic shadow. But to make it more realistic, you can use other parameters. The third argument is the blur radius, which makes the shadow blurry, more realistic. And the last parameter which we look here is spread radius. which make it spread more around. So let me click here. Let's return it back. There is one more great option. If you set the inset at the first argument, the shadow will move inside. This is interesting effect because it's not actually a shadow, but it adds some volume to the element, which is sometimes can be very great. And today we'll use it for the slider and for the switch. It looks more realistic, like box, like button, for example. The great thing about shadow is that you can add one more than one shadow. You can add as many shadows as you need by adding this after comma. Like, for example, we have this inset shadow and add some general shadow. Like, for example, blue. So now there are two shadows. Then you can add one more shadow on the top. So horizontal offset 0, 5 pixels, 4 pixels, minus 5 pixels, 2 pixels, 5 pixels radius, it looks very good. So this way you can play with shadows until you find what you need for your project. Now let's return and see which shadow we should implement for the switch and for the slide. Now I will zoom . And look what is here. Here the switch has 4 shadows. The top shadow, the bottom shadow, and also there are 2 inset shadows. Top left and one more top left, but different. And the slider has 2 inset shadows. Top, left and bottom also. Here almost the same shadows, but using different colors. If here there are yellow, here there are gray. Honestly speaking, I spent a lot of time to find correct parameters, so now I will just write them and you just see. Then you can try to find something better. So let's add the shadows for the switch first. The first shadow will look this way. As you see, it's a top shadow. Now second one is will be bottom shadow, bottom right shadow. Third, inset shadow. This one. And last, also inset. So now it looks really realistic. Now let's add shadows to sliders, because the slider in the default mode will have one shadow, but the slider in the on mode will have the different one. So box shadow for the slider. So let's move it to offline mode. It will be gray shadows. Set different colors. For top, the bottom. And now the shadow for the switch, the slider, enabled mode. Override. Set. So this is actually all. Now we completely restyled the simple switch to this much more advanced one. So that is it for today. You can find full solution on this page. I also added this link to the comment under the video. So this is it for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.